started. We'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There's a sign-in sheet going around, so if everybody could get the chance to sign that. We also have individuals on the phone. Those individuals on the phone, can you announce yourself?
This is Matt Roberts from HRG.
I'm Scott Sheldon, Milford Water Authority.
Anyone else? Okay. The minutes were sent out. Were there any errors or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll consider them approved. I'll take note that the minutes are relatively verbatim. The only downfall is as we get a bigger room and Lorraine is doing them, to get the names of the individuals talking. So sometimes that's difficult, and even for me doing error correction afterwards, and especially for other individuals here, if you could announce who you are when questions are asked, so we could get that clear for the minutes. And we can move on from there, and Marcus, you got the floor where we're at.
All right, so I sent out an email with the status report attached to it. Everybody has a copy of that handy here. That's the standard status report we send out. We still have not got back out to do the on-site assessments, finish those up, because they're not really the top priority. We have enough numbers now to do the alternatives analysis, what we're keeping our focus on. So that will be coming up here probably after February sometime. You can see this, basically the statistics that are there for the amount of on-sites remaining, things of that nature. One thing I wanted to make sure that was clear is we don't need to have all the mailer surveys back in. It's the on-sites that are the key ones. So Matamoros is done, Milford's done, as we talked about in the past, just Milford Township and Westfall Township just finished it out. We have alternatives analysis here today, the mapping for that. We're still working on the costing. We have some budgeted costing, some preliminary costing for it, but I really wanted to sit down with the stakeholders today and go over the different alternatives we're looking at and kind of get some feedback on what you guys are thinking for what we have so far for the alternatives for routing and things of that nature, and how extensive we want to, have the sewer system for alternatives. Do we want to have alternatives that go in different streets, so on and so forth. So I have those maps here. We'll get into those here in a second. And you can see what we have for coming up for the next month is to take the alternatives, take any comments we received from this meeting, bake those into the maps, and then finish out the costing for the different alternatives, and then the rate structure for those. So we're like I said, we don't have the rate information just yet. There's some information, just in pulling this together and some other things. We need another week or so before we can get that together. So we didn't want to delay this meeting, and I wanted to use this opportunity to get some feedback, and then we'll have that for the next one. Just with everything else and how it all comes together. That was our best laid plan to have everything for this meeting, but just some other things got in the way. We're trying to figure some of this stuff out. It's always a little bit more difficult than you perceive sometimes. So with that, I can leave these maps out. I don't know what the best way to do that. Maybe if I come around the middle of the table there and I can face it this way.
Right.
There's some room there. So this map and this map just a flavor of some of the overall mapping that's a part of the 537 plan as well that we have to do. So there's 6 more maps like this that have talk about the overall soils, the grades. This is looking at the soils for the area. So just to give you an idea of some of the efforts that have been going on as well. generating all this mapping for the area with all the parcels, so on and so forth, the different watersheds, things of that nature. So it's just some information. I'm sorry. That's right. So what we did is looked at a number of alternatives. They're in series. There's 6 different alternative series. And so you'll see, like, in Series 1, it's a 1A, 1B. Then there's Series 2, 2A, 2B, Series 3, 3A, 3B. This happens to start. So this alternative, and the point of the alternatives analysis is to just look at things a number of different ways and see what the costing looks like. So in this one, we're looking at just going down Main Street in Matamoros with a gravity line. That's alternative 1A. And then 1B is going down Main Street with a low pressure line. So West Falls sewer terminates in a low pressure line right around the Price Chopper, right around May, where May Street comes down and intersects with Route 6. So if we would pick that up with a low pressure line, there's, it would just push in the grinder pumps would just push into that and continue that to push out the West Fall. If we would go gravity, that alternative 1 would actually replace the low pressure line all the way down to the car wash. It's a side of Perkins. There's a pump station there, a main pump station. So that gravity line would go under the bridge. The old pressure line would get abandoned, and then the tie-ins to that pressure line would just then tie into the gravity, and then it would gravity all the way down to the car wash, where then it can be pumped up and pumped to the plant. So you got to kind of find, whenever you switch from a pressurized system to a gravity system, you got to find a spot to then pump back into the pressure system, because ultimately it's the lines that go to the plant are all pressurized to get there. It drives down past the car wash and just connects going down to the plant. So those are the 2 alternatives. The costing between the 2 is the least cost alternative, including the costing of the grinder pump. So the costing of this alternative, 1A, with a low pressure line coming down through here, does include the cost of grinder pump purchases for the connections along this route. So when you're looking at gravity versus low pressure, to me, we're looking at an apples to apples cost. It's not a, hey, we're leaving out the grinder pumps and going to put that burden on the homeowner. It's a part of the calculation here. So it's like, okay, I'm going to flush my toilet. That the cost that we're looking at between gravity and low pressure is the cost for the extension to pick that up from the homeowner and then get it into the line and then go down. Obviously, gravity just flows into the line and goes down, and then the pressure systems that go into a small grinder pump and then we pushed into the line and it goes down through. So it's important to recognize that. Again, between the 2, the low pressure system right now is looking at, it would be more cost effective to purchase the grinder pumps and install those than to do a gravity line extension. Obviously, one of the big reasons is you don't have to go as far. You don't have to go right down to here to connect. So instead of, you say, well, how can that be? You're purchasing all these grinder pumps. Well, with this alternative, you're going to here, and that's the extent of the excavation. Where with this one, you're extending all the way down underneath the bridge, all the way down through there. The unfortunate thing is there's no other option for gravity, because there's no main pump station right here. And one of the big things between gravity and low pressure systems is, when you take and you go from gravity and you got to get it into a pressure system, you have to do that through a centralized pump station. And those centralized pump stations are around $600,000. They're not, so at least $500,000 a pop, because they have to have backup power and all kinds of stuff. You have emergency generators there, you have lights. They're expensive systems. They can't, you have all this gravity going to them, lots of homes, and they can't fail. They have to have 2 pumps each or more sometimes if there's enough going to it, sometimes 3. And then, like I said, that secondary power, so on and so forth. And you want to build them that they're not cheap either. I mean, you want them to build them that they're not the Rolls Royce, but they're not the cheapest thing that you can ever put in the ground either, because then it just catches up with the O&M in the future. So that's how you get to those metrics. If there's any questions about the difference between those 2. So those two alternatives will continue to vet further. The next one, so that would be, I guess, that would be the possible alternative to show in the study is just going up Main Street for Madam Morris. Not going out, branching out any of the side streets. But the plan would conclude that we would, the rest of the side streets would remain on-lot systems, and you'd have an ordinance, if not already in place, for on-lot olds management, and that could be the desired alternative from the borough. And that's what we would propose to DEP. Now, if DEP would have any questions, comments, concerns on that, I don't know. We have to first propose it to them and then see where it goes from there. The next alternative here we're looking at is alternative 2 and then 2A. And again, this is gravity and pressure, and we'll get to Milford here in a little bit. But this Madam Morris was just on going from east to west. Sun comes up on the east, that's the way. But so they look largely the same for layouts. One's red and one's black, right? And we'll look at the red one just because red's a little easier to see on here. But these were the streets we were looking at based on the needs assessment and the on-lots, and then Matt just being out on the street, knowing, you know, a lot of the systems are the suspected malfunctions because they're cesspools, so it's really a question mark. It's not a yes, it's not a no. But there was some clustering here, and I think there was a couple malfunctions in these areas. So these, based on our on-site assessments and our needs assessment here, it seemed like the streets with the most need out. Now, we can go different streets or other streets or more or less, that's up to the community and the borough, but this is what we're looking at. So I'm not going to go through and name all the streets, but you can see Avenue,
It's Old Town versus New Town.
Is that Westfall now?
Mount Morris, we're still in Mount Morris. Come up here.
So that, I can send these maps out to the stakeholders group, and then you guys can look at them a little bit and think about it. We would, we have a costing for this. Obviously, this costs more, alternative 2 costs more than alternative 1, because there's more lines.
Just one question, Mark, and this is going to go to all the communities. These main trunk lines, are they going to be designed with capacity enough to someday take the whole borough?
Yeah, that would be.
Or are you keeping it tight where it's going to have to be replaced later on?
Yeah, we'll look at that. That's always a tough one, because you can't just put in a really big pipe, because you have to get a minimum velocity through the pipe. So if you imagine you turn on your sink, right, and it starts to drain out of pipe. Well, if it's a small pipe, and you turn on your sink, the water's going to rush through it pretty good, almost like a garden hose. If you dump that into a 4-foot diameter pipe, it's going to be this little trickle along the bottom of the pipe. It's going to look like it's hardly moving. So when you're going into a pressure system or a gravity system, you can't oversize the pipe too much, and Tim, you know this. So it's always that balance between the two. If we want to basically have the biggest pipe we can to get the minimum scour velocity, if that makes sense.
No, I understand it's more for these guys
Yeah.
to, as they're planning accordingly, to make a decision like, okay, if we don't have enough people going in and we downsize that pipe,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden we have a major problem. We may be replacing that same pipe down in the future. So is it like a decision making? Like how do you approach this for the here and now, or do you look down the line 10 years from now and say we really should have built that out a little bit more, or
And we
got
can
it to
get
a bigger size?
And we can get into those details to address that specific question. If, I wanted to know, do you want to look more like alternative A or more like something like alternative 2? Or is it alternative 2+? Do we need to change this? Where it's, we really should have came up this street, or so on and so forth. So this would be something good for the SEO to take a look at, see what his thoughts, her thoughts are. Other council members just, sit with it some and let us know, is this a viable alternative to look at? Is this, you lean in this direction more or the other direction? Again, it's your plan. So we're just here to help do the nuts and bolts and give a little guiding direction on it.
Mark, quick follow-up with the boroughs, then, okay, where there's more concentration of homes. If you're looking at that, and you don't have to answer it now, but with one with the gravity versus the pumping, like,
Yeah.
if it needed to be expanded, would one be more accommodating than the other? And by that, I mean more costly than the other? I'm not sure you can answer that now, and I don't really have to, but when you're looking at how big can you make it kind of thing,
Yeah.
after all, I think there is some belief that sooner or later, you know, more properties are going to need to be served. And ideally not for quite a while, but, you know,
Right.
quite a while gets around, and plus these are designed to last for decades, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's
we want to
the
have
intent.
we want to have a 20-year plan, you know, 15, 20-year plan. So this will cover us for the next 15 to 20 years. So that's when, I guess, councils or individuals are thinking about this to say, okay, what do I see in the town over the next 15? You gotta, you know, put out your crystal ball a little bit, and like, what is going to be our plan for the next 20 years, and try to encapsulate that. If this plan holds us through for the next 20, that's a successful plan. And then if, you know, if it's like, well, I'll have to do an updated to the plan in 20 years, yep, in 20 years. That's, you know, that's a good window. You can't get out too far. The crystal ball gets a little fuzzy.
Or cracks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Fred Weber, Milford Borough. So the last time I asked the question, let's go down to the borough for a minute. If you just run the pipe down Broad and hook up the commercial venues, is that going to be financially feasible? The answer was hesitant, no. So eventually, we would have to do the side streets. Mr. Tarquinio pointed out we could go up the alleys, which is fine, but we certainly weren't talking about a 20-year window. Okay, so I just don't want it out here that help. 20 years and, you know, we'll all be taking a dirt nap and it'll all be good. So it's not a 20-year window for the borough. Maybe Westfall or Matamoros are different, I don't know.
Why wouldn't it be a 20-year window?
Because it was not, the answer I got back was that it was not financially feasible to just have the commercial district hooked up. That you needed to expand out into the rest of the borough.
Is that from me? Did I give that answer?
Wasn't for me.
Okay.
I never said that.
Yeah, we didn't.
No, I know you didn't say that.
Yeah.
It was somebody on the phone.
Then that was probably me. And if that's what I conveyed, that's not what I meant to convey.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to all those numbers. So that's a factor that comes into play. Like I say that this, and I'm saying on that question,
Okay.
I'm just using this map. So like I said on this alternative 2 in Matamoros, I said this is more expensive. Yes, the construction cost is more expensive, but then you're adding more connectors as well.
Right.
So it can level itself out. You don't. There's going to be change in the numbers. It's not going to be the exact same numbers, but in some cases it can go down, some cases it can go up per unit. So you're trying to find that balance in there as well. But that balance isn't just financial. It's based on community planning need. You know, does this community want to branch out and cover the side streets within the next 20-year window or not? You know, if you do, then we should plan for that. If you don't, then we shouldn't. We shouldn't propose what we don't want to do. That's the big thing. You don't want to propose to DEP, we're going to sewer everything, and then not really want to do that. Don't do that. Even the department said that when we were at their meeting, saying, don't send us stuff that you're not committed to wanting to do. So,
Good.
so as you branch out, you're adding more connectors on.
Right.
But the costs go up too. Now, do the costs go up in proportionate ratio to the number of connectors? No, they don't. So you get more when you're in a borough. If there's a density piece to that.
Right.
So as you branch out further, your costs rise, but then you're adding a lot more homes on to the system at the same time.
So, what was the point of surveying 200 people in the borough?
You have to.
But no one's forced, what you're saying today is that no one will be forced to connect to a central sewage system. No residential persons.
Yeah, that's
It's up to the council.
Yeah.
What we do is up to us ultimately, but
like I said before, DEP is typically, in our experience, not heavy-handed with forcing towns to connect and so on and so forth. What really occurs with these kind of systems is if you're going to go up any branch anywhere, even up Main Street, you have to have people that are going to connect. You can't go up Main Street with a branch and just say, hey, it's there, I hope you connect, because it costs millions of dollars to get it there, and if they don't connect, this is not a field of dreams. You know, if you build it, they will come. That's not, we have plans, everybody wants to or will need to connect. And then, once you have that plan established, the finances in part to pay down the debt service and the whole deal, then you install it.
And the financing is based on proving how you're going to be able to pay it back. So if you say, well, we hope that we're going to get connections, no financing will come our way.
Well, exactly, and that was the point last time, right? That just by doing the commercial district, it wasn't gonna make it a financially feasible project.
We don't know that.
We don't know yet, because you need the big number to be able to see how that's going to divide up and be apportioned.
And we'll have those big numbers in April?
Well, we're hoping to have in March. I mean, I was hoping to have all that stuff together for this meeting, and we do, but it's not ready for a public forum. I know these meetings are public meetings, and unless the numbers are done, vetted by the stakeholders group, we're not just coming out with first draft numbers that aren't ready for prime
I'm
time.
all for getting it right.
Yeah, and that's where we're at.
Just one quick question, Mr. Tarkanian, if I might. You said that'll be up to the borough council as to whether the sewer gets expanded up the alleyway. What's the general feeling? What's your feeling about that? Is that something you look into?
A large part will be finances. My guess is because we don't have an immediate pressure on us to do it, the people's system's not failing a lot, that would probably be longer term in a 15, 20-year horizon, if not longer. I think going up the streets would be, a lot how much funding you can get by grants. So if we can get enough grants over 3 years to maybe do a block or two, that's what we'll do. Because we don't have a pressure, as far as I can see in talking with the state, we don't have an immediate pressure with this saying, you've got an issue today.
And one
And
final.
it will also give, once you have planning out of the way, it will give the community choices, where if a certain business in the community that is struggling with their sewer bills or whatever, well-established businesses are in needs of sewer, at least, right now, you can't, without this step done, which will take another year before this gets, you can't even contemplate the question. Once this planning is done, then you can say, okay, well, we're trying to finance these projects. Let's see how we get together. Public-private partnerships, businesses can help to the borough in getting grant funds too by demonstrating a need, writing letters along with grant applications. So there's a lot of things you can do. Once you get the plan approved, then it's actually work of trying to get it financed, which is a separate thing.
I mean, my personal feeling on that is that why even bother look for financing? Because just leave the borough alone.
But that's not fair to the other residents that need it.
Well, I'm willing to bet. Okay, so what's the breakdown out of the 200 people you surveyed? How many failed and why? What were the categories again? Let me state that to a lot of people are new here. So what are the three?
So
failures?
almost all the systems are suspected failures.
Exactly, because they're prior to 1970. And I can tell you there's probably 2 people that have a problem. Okay, so basically, you're saying that's not fair to the residents. It's also not fair, and I'm waiting for you guys to come out with the cost estimates of what this will cost the homeowners. $17.50 to hook up, an annual fee, and anywhere from $6,000 to $20,000 in between, depending on where your plumbing is in your basement, do you have a finished basement, pump out the cesspool, fill in the cesspool. These are things that we need to know. So my point is, great, what I'm hearing here today, I'm very happy. I'm down Broad Street. The commercial entities that need this, really need this, and we can't afford to lose them and cripple our tax base. Okay, let's be very clear about that.
Yeah.
All right? But to all of a sudden start thinking, hey, now let's go get additional funding, because if you get USDA or PennDOT, then everybody will have to hook up. And I think that's an unreasonable burden to be placed on the residents. $6,000 to $20,000 per, depending on your setup.
We understand that.
Well,
I don't need to be
I
lectured.
agree
So, well,
so
then-
strongly
I don't need to be
with this
lectured.
point.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I also
Then you
understand,
shouldn't-
I also understand that this is for the greater good of the community, and our business community needs it. We need
Right,
to start,
I
wait,
just said
I'm
that.
going to speak. We need to start someplace. That's what Mark is doing. Our role here is then to find out what this costs, and then our role is to go out and find out what kind of funding we can get. He's telling you this is a 15 to 20-year project. And I believe that's true because the water company updated every water main in this community. They did not go and do it all at one time. They did it as they found funding. They needed to do it all at one time, but they did it over time. So I think we just need to be patient here. To throw out numbers of 6,000 to 20,000, I think is unfair at this moment until we know, no, I'm telling you, it is, until this engineer that we're paying this money for comes out and tells us these numbers. I think that's only fair, because we're just putting fear in people's minds of this. 20 years from now, as your words, we will be probably in the dirt. So I think that we just need to slow down here a little bit without stopping this process. It needs to go. It needs to figure this out, and then we'll figure out where the money comes from.
Not looking to stop the process, but your comment that it's not fair to the residents.
I'm a resident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so am I. So a lot of people. So let's wait, exactly.
That's right.
I
So
don't
let's
wanna
not
see-
throw out numbers
Exactly.
that we don't fully comprehend that are true.
You can see,
So,
you can see that Clay County went through that. I went through it.
well, then how did any other county
You
ever
know,
put sewers in?
It's not.
How did Hawley ever put sewers in?
I was there when Hawley set
There you
theirs
go.
up back in the mid to late 80s and going through that, and people wanted, particularly in this day and age, we live in a world of snap judgments. You can't make snap judgments when you don't have the whole picture. And so to say, well, it's an all or nothing, it absolutely probably won't be an all or nothing. It'll be some of this, some of that, if it's going to work. There also might be numbers that just say, we can't do this. I also represent a municipality the last few years where we evaluated something, we said, we can't do this. We're now taking a second look at it, up at the other end, MilfordTownship, because we feel there is a need, but the first number we got was so ridiculous, we said, no, we scrapped it. Now, it cost us some money to get that answer, but we made an informed judgment. It took a year and a half before that judgment could be made. So it's not something where we can say, let's decide now whether we're going to do this or not, until you have everything laid out. And then you have to look at what the financing alternatives are. Sometimes, Hawley even did this, where he said, you know what, all right, we're going to scale back an area. There's an area that maybe they wanted it, maybe they didn't. We could make this work money-wise if we don't include that. They then came up with a plan 5 years later to add them in. So as you said with the Water Authority, it can be done incrementally. So it's not an all or nothing, you know?
So we're gonna have some hard numbers next month or in April? Is that what you're thinking now?
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal to have, I don't know if they're hard numbers, we're gonna have ranges of numbers. I mean, it's
Ranges,
as you're
yeah.
constantly bringing this in.
You know, what's a person gonna be paying a quarter for
Yeah, like a projected
fees and
rate,
stuff like
things
that?
like that,
You know, in New Jersey, it's $45 a quarter for sewer.
And that's where I wanted to get, you know, an assessment on these alternatives, because we would do one for each of the alternatives. And do we need all these, you know, or, like the two things that we looked at so far between Milford and Morris, I personally think those are good alternatives, all four. Gravity, because I think and the costs I've seen so far, the cost between the gravity and the low pressure are, the gravity's more expensive, but it's not that much more expensive. So I think it's worth vetting that through all the way, and then have the two different between just going up Main Street to going out a couple of streets. And one of the bigger questions that I had for the town itself is, you know, are these the right streets? This is based on our, you know, you gotta start somewhere. I'll start. This is where I think we should do this, with the side streets. We're on the same page there, and I don't need an answer right now on these, but like, do these side streets look good there? But if, for this alternative, to say, well, I'm not really interested in side streets. Okay, well, say you were. Would these be the side streets, or does that seem okay? And if the answer is, well, you guys did the needs assessment, so if that's what you're saying, then that's what you go. Okay, then we'll go.
Ponder on it.
Yeah, I don't need an answer.
And Fred, I want to, in the comprehensive plan was that, it was in the top 5 concerns of people in the borough.
So it doesn't actually
And
comprehensive.
what, in the comprehensive plan, and it was the biggest item to work with Milford Township to look at doing a central storage. So it's not a new item, and it's not that nobody wants it.
Oh,
There
no,
are some
I didn't
people
say that. I didn't say
Okay, I'm
that.
just saying, so, you know, to look at it, to start to work on it, it is a 20-year perspective, you know.
And again, like I said, what I've heard here today so far, it's very positive, very encouraging, okay?
So,
Actually, this started 15 years ago.
So,
Are we going to get a copy of these things, or?
I'll give you,
Show and tell?
yeah, I can leave this copy here, and I can send copies, paper copies or electronic, to any of the stakeholders. And if you guys, let me know which format
if
you
you
want.
want to send them to me, I can print out the map size for the municipality.
Yeah, whatever size is
We
needed.
do that. The,
This is the third one.
okay, yeah, so alternative number 3 is extension of the main to get out to Milford for, to serve the town. So there's just two, this basically primarily through Westfall. So Bill, we've talked about this already. You know, this one looks at a low pressure system, extending out the low pressure system out to get to the Milford line, Milford Township line. And this one looks at gravity. With gravity, you need some additional pump stations and things like that. These are, to me, these are two alternatives that we're going to have in the report to satisfy DEP's perspective. They want to make sure you really look at a lot of different things, but these are an alternative that really, there's no question that the low pressure extension all the way out through was like half the cost. So it was a lot more affordable to go this way. And again, it's because, I mean, you just drive from Westfall out to Milford, you're going up, you're going down, going up, you're going down. Every time you go down, you have a pump station. That's $600,000, $600,000, $600,000, and then you have to, so it's just not affordable to go gravity all that route and add all those pump stations. And then the gravity's not cheap itself either. It's not like that's free between pump stations. So that's what this would be. We would vet that through. Just we feel we need to do that for a complete plan for the department. They'll be expecting to see that. The next one is 4 and 4A and 4B. This is where we extend out from, actually this map is not perfect. This is the actual markups of the maps. This is a little bit better for 4A and 4B. The next one we go through, now it's upside down, Westfall's over here, and Milford's out here. This is where we actually come out all the way through and go through Milford Township to get to the Milford Borough line, and then do low pressure system in the borough itself there. Look at that costing, and then again, same thing here, where we would just be all the way down through Main Street in low pressure system. So between these two, again, so this is basically just going further. So it's one step, go to Milford Township line, the next step is go all the way into Milford Borough with one line. One's gravity, one's a low pressure. Again, this is about half the cost between the gravity versus the low pressure to do a pressurized system. Again, it's just undulations and the number of pump stations, things of that nature.
I'm sorry, which one's half
The low pressure. Yeah, from this point forward, the low pressure systems they're more cost effective. And that's including buying the rental pumps as a part of the project. And then you would install those. And then the question would, if this eventually goes down that, you know, who then owns and operates the rental pumps is a separate thing we have to talk about. Alternative, this is 5A. Looks at gravity through the borough. So it would be gravity again, gravity system through the borough, down through, this is the borough of Milford, down through and connecting all the way down through Westfall. Again, it's alternative we were going to throw the costing on, but it's about twice, so far in the data we have, it's about twice that pressure. This is a 5B, is doing the low pressure just within the borough, and then the rest of the line all the way down through gravity. Again, this part, this is, the costing of this is fine within the borough because it's low pressure, but after you get into the gravity service down here, it jumps way up. And this is just the extension of that through. And then finally, so 5C is just low pressure the whole way. So it would be a costing for that. So it would be between Series 4, like we were talking 4A, 4B, that just goes down, yeah, it just goes down Broad Street, doesn't go out Hartford. But then when we get to Series, so Series 5 goes down Broad and out Hartford. Yeah, so Series 4, when you're looking at these, when I send them out, and you're looking at these, Series 4 is just going down Broad. So if you look here.
When you say just going down Broad, are you talking about?
Go down to the light and stop.
No, I mean, we're talking about the main in Broad
Yeah,
itself?
yeah, just a main in Broad.
Because then everybody has to reverse their sewer coming opposite.
Yeah, it would just be a main in Broad right through here for business connections coming in. So now we can slide that over. If we go down the back side, we're going to have to do two, I guess.
Well, that's where I'm at, and knowing the state, they just repaved Broad
So
Street.
it would be easier to do that.
You think we should
Everything's being
split?
exited at the back of the building.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we
'cause there's-
split. Now, what about down Broad Street here?
Hartford.
Change
Or
that.
Hartford, I mean, sorry.
Go down to Pear Alley.
Both sides.
Well, it depends on, this is so, this drops off, the contour drops off the back. So this side's going to be a little bit tougher to look at.
Not,
This
well,
side is
it's
gonna
not
be-
if you're doing low pressure.
No.
See, that's what's, there's a lot to like about low pressure. I know it's, what's really happened over the last.
There's no real street behind these buildings here. So there's sewers out there, but there's no real street, so you have to actually go like pretty much so easement at the property lines coming across the back of the property lines to grab the property.
Yeah, some of the things that are, I mean, there's a negative connotation on granite pumps, pressurized systems. Fact is that they are generally more affordable all the time, I see anymore. The negative connotation came in when they were first brand new, and they, you know, their service record wasn't, you know, they're mechanical. So, but over the last 15 years, that service record's got a lot better. What's the nicest part is you're not worried about elevations. You can put it anywhere in line and, you know, pump it up.
Yeah, I mean, if your guys up in this area, we can walk with them because we have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Because we abandon old water mains in these streets. So we have a new water main and there's an old water main that would have to cross over, and the state just repaved all these streets, so they may not be too kind. They might end up having you repaint the entire street from shoulder to shoulder, no one overlay.
It also-
So that's what they have a
It also
tendency to do.
beat up on the sidewalks and everything. So actually-
Yeah, so you're saying on the two alternatives through here, we should be splitting,
Go through the-
splitting and splitting.
Using the alleys.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the cost there too, is because the alleys are only 15 foot wide. So you got a cost involved because now you have, you know, you can't put a dump truck next to your excavator. He's going to be digging and swinging all the way around and putting material in the dump truck behind him. It has its own problems.
But
And you've got some significant communication and electric lines there, I know, because of when the courthouse project got done.
Yeah.
You know, that was very involved dealing with that.
We know, it's,
Well, the good news is we won't have to worry about that for 20 years, right?
No, this is designed to serve the
Going down the
commercial.
alleys?
We talked about that.
No, this is designed to serve the
Main
commercial.
line.
Okay.
So you're talking about Hartford and Broad?
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. The better option may be in the alleys behind.
Yeah.
Matt, did you hear all that?
Yeah, so the Broad has been recently repaved, or it'd be hard to go through there, so trying to go for.
Well, it's more that
evaluate
this-
what the cost
The
would be.
systems are in the back.
The system, it's more that the systems all flush out the back, so they're worried about rerouting the systems inside the buildings.
You know, you got all your county
So
buildings.
just do the two alleys
Yeah.
behind the house.
Yeah, it's gonna double the amount of linear footage, though.
It is.
Yeah, it may not be, you know,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking initially about it. Oh, definitely at least make an alternative.
I was gonna say, if you could do an alternative, just so you see what the cost
Yeah.
is, then you have
Yeah.
to factor which one's gonna make
Right,
more
which
sense.
one's-
Well, because you can
It would be
offset,
easy if-
yeah, you can offset, I mean, you could throw into the package the offset for, you know, if the one is so much more than the other one, it's like, well, then, you know, we go down the middle road, then, okay, well, now the private owner needs to switch the laterals around, well, what's that gonna cost per? And we work that into the project costs, funding, things of that nature. So we'll have to look at that. That's good feedback. So the different, some feedback there is, and we were looking at two, one going down just Broad and one going down Broad and Hartford Street. Do we need both sets, or should we just look at going down Broad and Hartford Street? Is there any desire to just go down Broad Street? Or is it
Lumberjack senior facility, so I think with those two,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was thinking, Bell Reeves, we have a.
Down this corner
Down
here.
that corner here, you have the micro room.
That's a
you
big
have bunch of
difference.
things, yeah.
Yeah, my take is that there was
Yeah.
more desire to want to do both.
Yeah.
It's not
I would say,
as clean as Matterhorn. Like Matterhorn is a little more cleaner. It's just straight down the rain, and then there's no offslips and branches and stuff like that.
if you did this down this way, going up this way, is that like a phase two? Then we could do that because we don't have.
Go down this way and this way?
And that way, then this, there isn't as much immediate need.
Okay, so
that could-
Matt, what he's talking about is coming down Broad, when you get to Hartford, go down to the left as an alternative, but then going to the
Okay,
right.
so like West Hartford Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's true that
Okay, so
the township has the
make those two
key
separate.
road in Apple Valley.
Hartford
Right.
Street and the other
So
one.
the township
Yeah.
does have
West Hartford
issues with it, that they might want to be with that. But in terms of the borough, the biggest need would be right along here and down here, I think.
Okay, so we'll split that out. So it'd be, is this West Hartford?
That's
East, that's what I thought.
East,
Okay.
east,
East,
west.
Yeah, so the one alternative would go,
Okay.
one alternative would be Broad Street and East Hartford Street. Another alternative would be
Both sides.
East and
Broad
West Hartford.
Street, or both sides, yeah.
But on Hartford,
The one was
no,
just east and then one was east and west.
Correct.
on Broad Street, you're
Okay.
talking about going down Broad Street itself or using an alley. Would it be an alley on the east side or the west side?
Alleys would be
Both.
both.
Yeah,
Both.
It would be both.
It would be both.
That's the
Ah,
downside.
Which is why
of
double the
alleys.
line.
That's, you double in the line, but then it's in the back of everybody's property.
Okay.
Because everybody's sewers are in the back.
And then for Hartford,
If you go up
There's
Apple
no-
Alley,
all
or
the
Pear
way-
Alley, I'm sorry, Pear Alley, which is
All the way up
alongside
to
Forest
Keith
Hall,
Booth's.
and that goes all the way to the Grand Union,
Okay.
and also down to all the way to Bell Reed. The only thing with that is, you don't pick up the far side of Hartford Street. You have to bring laterals across, or whatever you would have to do. Like the Dimmick and those places would have to jump across, unless you did easements over there and right-of-ways in people's backyard. Come down Blackberry, you come down Blackberry and go all the way to the water wheel if you wanted to, right? You can back up, but that's all, years and years.
Makes it tough.
Is this going to extend behind Apple Valley up to Gray Towers?
That's up to the township officials, but right now on this map, it's showing it right to Apple Valley and showing it. I don't think it's up into Pine Acres at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think that's on here yet. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody's lifetime it might be.
All right, and then the final alternative is alternative 6, and that's just extending out different streets in Milford Borough. You can see this is. This would be the low pressure system and then going up different streets. So continue down Broad and go up Sauk Hill.
Out the Woodville Mill.
Yeah. And then, so it's basically just adding on these additional branches.
Mark, the other thing too to consider with regard to Hartford Street is they have a lot of the streets taken done, so you're gonna have additional costs trying to come up underneath that bluestone walkways.
That's why the alley would be better.
Yeah.
You know, when you're looking at the cost analysis, you gotta take into consideration all those street lights that are out there,
Yeah,
all the
extra.
bluestone, all the fancy sidewalks, and everything else.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, all the sidewalks were dealt with, they're all ADA compliant now when we came through with the water main.
They got you.
No,
Good job.
no, they did it just before we did. We
Wow,
timed it right.
nice.
It wasn't our nickel that paid for that at that time. So at least that portion of it's done, but you still have to deal with all the other infrastructure that's out in front of you. On Garden Harbor, there's a fair amount on those major
Yeah,
ones.
and we'll break that in. So these, again, when looking at alternative 6, just the same thing, feedback on, this is based on our needs assessment, where we thought, if we break down.
They're a part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if there's different streets, the lesser north, that would be an alternative.
Because once you get down here, then you start thinking about the lumberyard. Right there. Although you can pick the lumberyard up here. There's an alley someplace here.
Yeah, so if there's tweaks to these, to say, well, why don't you go down here so you can get this, and, he'll let me know that stuff. So that's it. So I guess I'll send those maps out. I'll email them out to the stakeholders group, I guess, and then I'll send, Mike will have them, and then maybe you can print some when you print or whatever.
Yeah, I'll need to know who needs what printed, so.
I just think it'd be easier off instead of that, just make a set for each one of the municipalities. You might as well just do that, the entire set. You need to see the whole plan anyway, even though Matamoros doesn't really pay attention to Milford, but I just think you should see them all. Well, you know what I'm saying, because your decision is more on Matamoros, but I think you should see the whole thing. So it should just be one big packet. So I think you should just make up 3 packets. And if they need more for the planning commissions or whatever, just print them. No, at this point, but, yeah, because we have the printing capabilities. You're not going to have these.
Yeah.
One other thing, and Bill Schneider, Westfield, this before, one thing Mark and I talked about also is Westfield is going to extend down fairly, not rapidly, but fairly soon. When you talk about the size of the pipes, obviously the service Westfield or Westfield line won't be as large a pipe as you will, you're going to service all of Milford all the time. So that's something that has to be discussed and figured out timeline there because
Yeah, it's the same thing.
We're going to add to the township line now, soon. We're 20 years out, it's going to be a while. You said there about pushing things off 20 years. If you built this 20 years ago, it would be much cheaper. So you kind of have to look at it and move along. That aspect also. So those are things that you're looking at head this way.
Yeah, and some of it, we'll look at the flow differentials between, we'll have to kind of bake that in. For this level, it's just a pipe diameter size, so it doesn't have that much change on the costing, but ultimately for like the design and construction line, we'll have to get a gauge on where towns are and connecting the rest. In some scenarios, you have to put two different lines in the same trench, so you have a smaller one for the near future capacity and then a larger one in the same trench for the far future capacity.
What about grinder pumps? Does it affect the size of the grinder pump?
Not really. See, the grinder pumps, they pump pretty slow and they have a high head pressure, so there's a lot of expandability. That was their main gripe when they first started, like, oh, the systems aren't as expandable. It's like the grinder pump industry, multi-billion-dollar industry, has solved that problem. And there's other things that they've solved these problems over the last 15 years that they're pretty affordable. The lines aren't, the pump itself is, there's a cost there, but the lines aren't nearly as deep. They're only 4 foot deep versus 8, 10, 12, up to 20 feet deep sometimes, which then you have to terminate in a $600,000 to $800,000 pump station, where these you don't have that. Well, there's a lot of, and the grinder pumps, we're costing them at $8,000 per, but they can get down to, when you're buying them in group, they can get down to like $4,000. You can have the cost when you're buying in bulk. So, and you look at that and say, okay, well, it's the normal number I see is like 5,000 or whatever. There's a lot of 5,000s and $700,000, so that's how it equals out. And they're really flexible for where they can go. You just chop the line, you demo from there down, you put the pump right there. It doesn't matter if that line's a little lower, a little higher in this house or whatever. You only need a space that's like, maybe 5 foot by 5 foot at the most, just for the excavation. Pump it in there and then pumps it out wherever it needs to go. So as we're going down this road, I mean, we're looking at all these. I like gravity as well, but I don't, we need to get beyond the negative sentiment on the gravity pumps here, because they're cost effective, and you'll see that through the costing. I think in Milford, I think that's where it's going to be heading, towards the pressurized system. Matamoros, I think you'll have some options there between gravity or a pressure system, just because of the
elevation change.
well, you're upriver. I mean, it really comes down to, you guys are downriver of the plant. You guys are upriver of the plant. Some of it gets to be that simple. So you can flow down to the plant. You guys are pushing back upriver of the plant. There's a bunch of hills. There's that huge
Well, they're used to that.
ravine.
My horse has been setting this their
Yeah.
There's nothing new there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's that
I know where this meeting is going to end.
Okay, wrap it up.
It's all Madam Morris's fault.
That's why we don't swim in the river here.
They do.
It's fine.
I know they do.
Much better up there.
So they got poured on the other side.
Thanks, Fred.
Yep, just a couple more questions, sorry. So one of the, I think in your submission to DEP, you have to have alternatives in there as well to central sewage options, right?
Yeah, so the rest of the boroughs would be, the rest
Well,
of,
my question is, would you take public input to develop that section? A lot of talent around this table, and there's a lot of talent available that knows this stuff, so would you be amenable to that?
yeah, tell me what you got.
Great. If you give me a card after, right?
Yeah, I have it.
Great. The other thing is, paragraph 537, section 10, paragraph 20. I'm requesting that I get the authorities provide municipal waste load management information regarding sewage capacity and expansion plans to any individual on request. So if there's somebody here that I could tap into that could get me that information, then
What is it again?
I believe are you talking about Westfall's information?
yes.
Yeah. There's a right to know procedure under Pennsylvania law that you can submit a request.
So that supersedes what's in here in 537,
Yep. Uh-huh.
which says,
Well, because 537 was written before the right to know request came into play.
Okay.
That came in the late 80s, early 90s. 537 was written in early 1970s.
okay, so right to know.
I know, because I was in law school when it got adopted. So
Right.
and now I'm old, so.
There you go.
But yeah, you certainly can,
Yep.
but we need it in writing, and
No, I've done right to know before.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a
Now, but where is the office?
we have an office, the authority has an office, and there's a person in there 4 days a week.
Okay.
Bill Schneider's the chairperson of the Westfall Authority. I'm their attorney. But Jerry I is the office manager. You can call first just to make sure that she's there, but she's normally there Monday through Thursday, right? Or Tuesday through Thursday? Tuesday through Thursday, yeah. Sometimes they're there other days. But yeah.
And you're interested in the flow, existing flow?
I want to see the numbers because I know one of the questions that came up early on, with all these additional townships jumping in, you're going to be at capacity.
Yeah, so you basically want our
I'm
chapter.
curious about what is the expansion plan and how does that look? And what are the current numbers? Just want to see the baseline and.
Yeah, so the chapter 94.
Yeah, and we did talk about all that at the beginning of whether it was even feasible, because we wouldn't be here if there was no capacity. There's quite a bit of capacity now, but it's absolutely not unlimited. There's the possibility that it could be expanded, but that's not simple, or quick,
Well,
or cheap.
exactly, yeah. So I'd like to-
Well,
and just like the
These folks know that. you know.
Yeah, and just for everybody, so these alternatives, I'd have to confirm this, but I'm fairly confident that the alternatives we showed here wouldn't require expansion, because when we were talking about expansion, we were talking about full build-out, both towns. That will require an expansion, but that's not what we're talking, that's not what's in this right here.
Well, Milford Borough, I think they were talking, what, 130,000
Yeah.
gallons a day, and then, since you're not doing the whole borough, it's going to be much
What was your
less
total
than that.
water? What was your total water a day?
This time of year, it's like 140, which is a better judge of what we actually will be sending to the sewer, because we don't have all the car wash and all the other activities that
That's
chew
all
up
the
our
borough,
summer
and a
usage.
little bit of the township.
Yes.
Pine Acres.
Yeah, we have Pine Acres, and we have along the 3-lane.
Right, okay.
And the 5-point bonus question, when does the Delaware River Basin Commission get in on this, or do they? Because they obviously are in control of what effluent gets put into the river, right?
Yeah, so they're involved, they're a DEP review process, so after we get our intent is to get these kind of formalized as alternatives, get the costing, and then set another meeting with DEP and DRBC to show them where we're at, and get their
So
preliminary questions.
they're working in concert, DEP and DR?
Yeah, they work, so DEP, in my experience, generally defers to DRBC. So they'll have the DRBC give it the head shake. They do it more formally than a head shake.
Your report initially gets submitted to DEP?
Yes, we only, well, I think our requirement is to only submit to
We're gonna submit a
DRBC.
copy of the draft, both the DRBC and DEP.
Yeah.
When it comes time.
Our requirement is only go to DEP, we usually send it to both. Because DEP is going to turn around and say, well, we want you to send it to them, so we send it to both.
I think they mentioned.
Yeah, could you clarify for me, I know you said a gravity addition needs a pump station.
Yeah, every time you terminate, it has to go to a pump station somewhere.
Right, so the low pressure, is this where you're talking about the grinder pump?
Yeah, and those would
Okay.
not need to go to a pump station.
Right.
It's
Okay.
basically, yeah, either way you're throwing through a
I
pump,
didn't
it's
know
just,
if
is
a
it a lot
grinder-
little? Yeah.
If a grinder pump went from somebody's business to the line?
It does,
Oh, it does?
yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
on the property itself, yeah.
Oh,
So it's like a little pump. Usually they're just a 2-foot diameter top, and it's a cylinder, goes straight down, and there's a pump inside of it.
All right.
So, so that's interesting, you said you could get the cost down to $4,000, I mean, that's 4,000 right there, right? If you're going with it right. I think
Well, it's-
you'll probably have a pretty good range of estimates for us in this final report.
Yes, the grinder pump varies.
Yes.
It's 8,000 to 4,000,
Mhm.
depending on the number,
Right.
so that's going to have a fluctuation. You're going to have a range.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Well, the point is, if a resident had to buy it, he'd be paying $8,000 for it. If you can buy them in bulk and get them at $5,000, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I'd love to spend another $5,000.
Can I jump in here and get both of your names? So
Bill Tittman.
Bill.
Milford.
Oh, Peggy Emanuel.
Peggy.
I have another question. On 5A, you had gravity, are you recommending low pressure through the borough?
The costing is seeming to be, I'm not recommending,
Oh, okay, all
yeah,
right.
I go based off what the costs are. So I
Oh.
think from an engineering standpoint, where I try to make sure that everybody's is well informed on is what is the least expensive alternative to get the job done.
Okay.
Because that's one metric, which is a powerful metric, right? But it is not the only metric that decisions are made by. There's other things.
I saw
So-
you had recommended through Milford Township that the low-pressure system, in your estimation, was the best
It
system
was
for
the-
Milford
it looks
Township.
like right now, it's going to be the least expensive alternative to get the job done. Does that make sense?
All right, yeah.
So it's like, well, or you recommend, it's like, well, I'm not really recommending, I'm saying to you that you can do it this way or this way, this one's half the cost of that one, which one do you want to do?
Well,
Yeah.
because the thing is, with the gravity system through Milford Borough, then you need a pump station, and where would that be?
Exactly.
How many pump stations total would you need for the whole project? Is there any guess on that? Would you need 3 or 4?
Depends which alternatives you like. So if you're doing the least expensive alternatives, you make sure that the gravity down to there, it should be 0. Right, because you have low pressure systems pushing everything from Milford up, and either Matamoros would gravity down to an existing pump station, or you would low pressure down to an existing pump station. There would be no additional pump stations. Now, if you go gravity on certain sections the other way, it'd be a number of them. It would be, if I had to guess, it'd be 5 or 6. I mean, it's in I didn't really look up the number. It's in here. They looked up all the specifics. There's
So
a
you're
little-
going to identify that.
we will, in those specific alternatives, and that's where we need to, there's gotchas as you're analyzing gravity further, you gotta really be cautious and because there's little gotchas, like that big ravine that goes under 3-lane, the creek, I think.
Yeah, the head.
Yeah, you're at that pump station right there, because there's no way you're getting gravity underneath that. You're not going over top of it, because you'll be too deep by the time you get there. So you have to have a station right there. And then there's every low spot, you really have to look, how deep can the gravity really get before it's unacceptable. Once you get a manhole over 15 feet deep, you have to put platforms in it, and the whole deal, it gets kind of out of control. Yeah, nobody wants to go down, well, you're not allowed to go down the hole, but nobody wants to go down a 30-foot deep hole, right, Tim?
I'm retired.
No. Send Tim down in a spacesuit, we'll be all right.
Yeah, good oxygen pack, please.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Just one other quick thing, Bill Schneider was sometimes when you do these loan moves, if you offset the cost to your residents, you could borrow that with the grant, whatever, and stretch their payments back over, whatever, 25, 30, or 40 years without running to a point, and make it easier, instead of them having to pay out $5,000 or $6,000 then. I mean, we can do that.
But I'm just wondering, I mean, if I get a contractor, right, and he's doing all the plumbing, he's getting, digging up the backyard, moving the bushes, doing whatever he's got to do. I need to drive a pump, that's $4,000. So, whatever that cost is, that's the cost to the contractor. And he's not going to give me a 30-year payment.
I'm just talking about the grinder pump.
Exactly.
And they do have a 24-hour storage. If you have a problem, they go back in that system as long as you're not doing water.
Yeah, because
Gives you 24
that was one of the points made in the Clay County article, that they did give people 30 years to repay on something like that. But if you're the contractor you're dealing with, he's got to pay his guys, he's got to pay for the whatever pipes and anything else he brought in. They're not going to wait. They got families to feed, right?
Yeah.
USDA has a lot of programs out there for this type of scenario. It's not only does the townships, municipalities, authorities can borrow that money, individuals can apply for USDA assistance, and they have it for elderly, and they have all kinds of different classifications.
PennVest does also.
So there's a lot of money sitting out there that's available where the resident, the homeowner, will have options on how to handle their cost of it. So it's not coming out of pocket. There's other alternatives. They can make payments, low interest loans.
So
Yes.
this is something I think that's very key, that residents should know about.
Yeah, it will
I
be in
didn't know
that.
about this. I'm sure a lot of
It will
people
be in the 537.
Good.
Yeah, we should tell them this question. We cover that in the funding section.
Great. Okay.
Fred, we are putting out frequently asked questions about this whole thing. So we'll publish something that will.
There's a document coming out from the
Yeah,
borough.
that will try to answer all of those.
That was very helpful.
Because right now, I think PennVest is at like 1.75% as of right now.
Now, the other thing, Commissioner, is if you get funding from USDA or PennVest, I believe, that does mean that people will have to hook up. They will mandate that.
Loans, you have to pay
That's right.
the loans. Grants, you don't have to pay back, so obviously the first option is to get as much grants as possible.
Depends
So
on where
when
you
we
gotta
get
your
these
money.
numbers, that's when, I'm going to point to him, Mr. Mrzinski over here, who's the grant coordinator for the county, will actively go out there looking for all of these different dollars that are laying out there. And I know Mark does that also. That's part of your program out of your engineering.
Yeah, we'll
Is to
look
help
at-
identify funding sources, and then we go from there. But until he has that done, and until we know numbers, I don't think it's fair to throw $20,000 out there until we are absolutely certain. And then, even then, when we find that out, we need to know what kind of funding sources we have. Because maybe the funding source is a super low interest loan that helps people offset this. But we need to know that before we put fear in people that we're going to lay a $20,000 bill on somebody. Because that's not the plan here. It never was the plan or the intention to see that a resident or anybody would have to be stuck with some exorbitant bill. Because as Tony said, PennVest or whoever, DEP, will not let you build this if it's unaffordable.
Well, and the other thing that comes in when you get into PennVest and things of these nature, where we talk about mandatory connections and things of that nature, that's mandatory connection where you build the line. But if you don't build the line there, nobody has to connect.
Yeah, and your study will show if you're just coming down Broad and hooking up those businesses on Broad, doesn't make it feasible, because, you're talking about millions of dollars, and then you're hooking up 5 people, we're gonna pay $4,000 a year in annual fees.
But again, we don't know.
But again, exactly, but I'm just saying, that-
Because Westfall is an example of that, because when they were building these plants out there wasn't all of this that's out there. Walmart wasn't out there then, when you guys took over. So, I mean, they were able to do this there with a minimal amount of hookups to this.
And you gotta keep in mind, some businesses generate the
More
super usage
EDUs.
of 50 homes.
Yeah.
So it's,
But I fully understand the commercial aspect of this, and again, we cannot afford to have them close, lose, or go goodbye, because our tax base will be screwed.
Yes, absolutely. That has to be the drive. That has to be the drive.
so it's being, and I think by the way, I wanna say that the Pike County area in these meetings, you guys do so much better than other communities I've worked in with rational, sane, deliberate conversations that are controlled. Everybody's in good shape, at least the meeting's on there. I'm about to go to another meeting that has nothing to do with sewer.
Down the valley.
I'm gonna bring some popcorn, put my feet back, and go like, let's see this unfold, this is gonna be good.
Well, you guys are fortunate, I'm on my meds today, so.
But, so,
Catcher's mask on.
with that said, it's that balance between, you have that commercial need. That's the goal. What do we need to do to get to that goal? How do we drive down the cost as much as we can? If we get to a cost figure we're just not comfortable with, it's too high, then the question is, how do we get that lower? How do we get that lower? How do we get that lower? How do we drive it down? How do we drive it down? Until we say, there's no other way that we can drive this down any further than to you, that's the point in time where you say, if it's still too high, that's where hard decisions are. But until we get to that spot, I don't want people to take numbers that we're starting to see and say, well, that's the final number, that's what it's gonna be. It's like, no, that's the starting number. If there's a concern with that number, let's talk about it. What do we gotta do? Where do we gotta get it lower? We're gonna try to be pushing that down all the time, but we need to know the pinch points with that. At the end of the day, it's not gonna be free. You're not gonna build the system for no cost. So it's just, get the numbers out there and starting to work. I'm starting to work.
Good. So I was just ready to cut.
Anything else?
Any other business until we...
Till we meet again next month at
March
4th, 3 o'clock.
Thank you.